this isn't your first time on the podcast. Longtime listeners will remember that you came on in season 1 and you talked about Luke Acts and the persistence of Jewish identity and calling and the significance of the Torah and the land and the people of Israel, mostly in Luke Acts. And you were asked about most of your work, the things you've written. But there was one book that we didn't talk about, I think because we wanted to save it for one episode, because it's worth an entire episode to talk about this book. And that book is Searching Her Own Mystery, Nostra Aetate, the Jewish People and the Identity of the Church. Can you give us a short, back cover summary for our listeners who are probably predominantly inheritors of a generally Protestant mindset? How would you describe this book, Searching Her Own Mystery?
Yes. Well, in practical terms, the book grew out of conversations that took place in meetings between 2000 and 2015 between a group of Messianic Jewish leaders and a group of very prominent Catholic leaders. And those Catholic leaders were actually asked to do this by Pope John Paul II. And so it was a high-level conversation. And it was because they took very seriously what God was doing in the Messianic Jewish movement. They, despite our being small in size and not very impressive, this vast institution and its leaders thought there was something important going on among us. So in those meetings, which took place in Rome and in Jerusalem, and with 1 or 2 sessions in Vienna, over those years at the beginning of the 21st century, I presented a number of theological papers that were aimed at giving a Messianic Jewish take on key theological issues that were of importance to the Catholic world, and trying to show how a Messianic Jewish perspective opened up vistas that many Catholics had not seen. And so in 2015, I took a number of these papers that I presented, put them together into a book, wrote an introduction that tried to set a context for this, and wrote another chapter that was telling something of my own story and my own history in relationship to the Catholic world. And then also told the story of this conversation that had been initiated by Pope John Paul II, and then included those papers and then some additional material that I added on, and so it's really a book that was directed specifically to a Catholic audience, but at the same time, I think it is something that has that can speak to a broader Christian and Messianic Jewish audience as well, because I think there are insights that the Catholic tradition has that have either been lost or neglected in the rest of the Christian world in reaction to some of the things that were perceived that were very bad in that same tradition.
Yeah.